All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Market Close. We are live, and we are having a pretty exciting day across the board. When I left during the market open, we weren't fully red, but we were losing a little bit of steam, and then we actually kind of officially went red. Basen said some stuff about China. We'll talk more about that, but that caused a red basically decline from that 1.2% move we had intraday. Now we kind of recovered. We fell all the way down to 659, below 660. I think we were at 670 when I left in the market open. Now we're at 664. So still a nice move on the S&P, up about 0.38% of the day, but obviously not as much as it was during the market open. However, you did have some big moves across the board. HIMS is starting to get squeezy again. HIMS right there, up 18% on the day. They launched the new products for the HERS part of their business, and that's why this stock is taken off. We'll talk more about that product. It has to do with menopause and a variety of other things that women have to deal with. I guess that was enough to get the stock to be excited. I mean, this thing is still short more than 30%, and so obviously a squeeze can happen whenever there's massive momentum. Market cap is also relatively small for a company of their size. And then you had AMD that did not break 240, but 239.24 right here at 237. So you got a bunch of different candidates that are red, like an NVIDIA, like a Palantir, like a Hood. SoFi losing a lot of its momentum as well. Still up on the day. Grab fell from like 610 down to 593. Amazon 215, that's still down 0.5%, got all the way down to 212. But you do have a HIMS and an AMD, which I guess had market-specific catalysts. HIMS being the launch of their new products for HERS, and then AMD being, I think, a kind of catch-up with this Oracle GPU news. And as a result, those two stocks are doing pretty damn well. So not too bad. We will have United earnings after the bell. This will be the first earnings on the market close in basically a month now that we are back in the earnings season. TSM is tomorrow early in the morning. We had ASML today, which I think is still up about 5%, but we'll get TSM tomorrow. We'll see how they do. ASML right there up about 2.4%. And then we'll keep going from there. Trump is live. We're not going to go to Trump right now. He's talking about crime with Kash Patel. So we're probably not going to get any business or tariff conversation out of him, but we'll see what he says after the bell, and then we'll recap if anything's there. Now, I made a couple moves in my portfolio today. Did some rebalancing. Number one, I sold the Google calls, the 150 calls that we bought in January, sold them today. Officially took profits. Google 250, bought them at 150. Well, I bought them when Google was at 190, in the money for 150. I thought, you know what, today was the day to take some profits. So sold those calls. They expire in January anyway, and took some profits there. Number two, I sold half my HIMS. I took some profits literally yesterday when HIMS was 53. I think I was talking about, I kind of really don't care about being in HIMS long-term. And I love the stock. I love the thesis, but I just don't want to be in it long-term and make it into a position. And well, the market's giving me some liquidity today, and I'm taking some of that liquidity. So I left half of it. We're going to leave it for earnings. We'll see what happens on Monday. This is not bearish HIMS by any sense of the imagination. You guys know the reason I got into it because I think it's cheap, but I want to take some profits. So I left half for those that are in it heavy, and I know a lot of people are in it very heavy. You deserve a day like this because this thing has really been stuck over the past 2 months. But I did say I want to raise some cash. I did say I want to rebalance, and selling half of the HIMS was, a good opportunity, at least from these levels. And then Google, I had to sell those at some point, and we're getting towards the end of the year. So I took some profits on that. And that's what we got. So that was the rebalancing on my portfolio. And then I bought some more Amazon. That's all. I bought some more Amazon at 214. And that's pretty much the moves I made today. 215 right here now on Amazon as we get into the close. All right, let's get into some of the headlines and talk about what's going on. And then we will keep going from there. We got United earnings after the bell. Let me know what moves people made in the chat. If you took any profits on HIMS, if you sold any calls on HIMS, if you bought more into HIMS. The reason HIMS is moving, by the way, let me just play this real quick. I believe it's because of the launch of their new HERS product. And it seems like that is enough to get the market to be a bit more excited again.
At HERS, we're redefining women's healthcare. Our digital platform breaks down barriers to care, providing empowering support that meets women on their own terms. As an OBGYN of more than 20 years, I'm proud to share that we're taking the next step in transforming women's healthcare experiences. Today, we're introducing access to a new line of treatment plans built specifically for women experiencing perimenopause and menopause.
And that was enough. That got the street excited, I guess, along with the short float. And for whatever reason, the shorts got also a little scared as well, I guess, from that new product launch. And as a result, you got a 16% move on HIMS. Now, again, look, I think HIMS is cheap. I think they're a phenomenal company. I think their growth rates are far better than a lot of the other stocks that are running that don't really grow as much as them. but I also don't want to build this into a massive position. So for me, it was more so of a portfolio sizing decision versus anything else. But nonetheless, that was the move that he had today. HIM's right there up 16% of the day. ASTS almost broke 100, 99.82. ASTS right there, 96.36. That's up 2% on the day. Still a move above 90 is pretty incredible. Rock Lab, by the way, did break 73.50. We got all the way to 73.97. Rock Lab right here, 69.32, just below 70 on the day. Okay, let's look at some macro stats. So remember how I told you guys that we're going to get a lot of data coming up soon on what happened on Friday as we aggregate all the research and we see, what Friday ended up looking like for the first 3% down day since April. Well, we got some data. Take a look at this. Record buy the dip week for stocks. Single stock inflows were the 5th largest in history last week. Friday being, one of the main reasons for why. And the biggest ever for a week when the market was down at least 1%. Let me say that again. It was the 5th largest inflow ever in stock market history. Buy the freaking dip is correct. I mean, that is the thesis for what has been happening all year. And whenever there was a week in the history of the stock market where the market was down at least 1% and we were down 3% on Friday, last week was the biggest week ever for inflows on a week where we actually had at least a 1% down day. I mean, I knew we were going to get some stats soon. I didn't know the stats would be like that, but it kind of makes sense given the record call option volume stats that we saw a couple days ago as well. This is pretty incredible. If that doesn't show resiliency, if that doesn't show buy the dip, if that doesn't show that people are ready to allocate cash, I don't know what does. Now, does that also make people nervous? 100%. I can imagine it makes people pretty nervous seeing that much activity and momentum is coming into the stock market. But then again, I think this is also why Paul Tudor Jones says that he thinks there's going to be a lot of momentum. And this was the clip of him yesterday speaking on rates. If rates are going to keep going down, you're probably going to get assets that continue to go higher.
The one thing that you can never, ever forget is that a year from today, assuming that the president gets his wishes, that the Fed funds rate's going to probably be in the 2.5%. I think they would like to see it at 2.25%. So I think 2.5%, 2.75%. Obviously, whoever the new Fed chair is going to have to be able to intellectually move that board, a majority of the board. He's probably, whoever the new Fed chair, let's say they've got 6 solid votes, so he'll have to find one more. And I don't think it'll be that hard to do. But if you're going to have 2.5% overnight rates or 2.75%, that's a really compelling story for higher equity prices.
It's a pretty compelling story, and I think that is the reason that we got that data that the inflows were so high. Now, that was not retail specific. That was just inflows in general. So this was retail and institutional investors combined. But nonetheless, I mean, the largest inflow in stock market history on a week where the S&P 500 is down at least 1%. It's quite incredible to see. S&P right there, 663. Looks like we're going to be pretty flat on the day. I mean, we were pushing 670 in the morning, but ended up going down based on what Basant said. Okay, so what did Basant say? It was a quick comment, but that comment was enough to get the street a bit worried about this China stuff. So basically, Basant said on China that we need to be a bit tougher on them, was kind of the claim. So let me get the exact quote right here. And I thought someone mentioned soybeans again, but I guess not. Treasury Secretary Basant urged the World Bank to end support for China, said securing critical mineral supply chains as a U.S. priority, and pushed the bank to finance reliable energy sources. He also called for ending the 45% climate co-benefits financing target. I think that was really it. That comment right there, that was not at the CNBC conference. It was at some other conference that he was at. Him saying that at around, 1 p.m. is 12:45, 1 p.m. is kind of what got the market on tilt about, hey, is this China thing still an issue? Again, I think it ends up being a buy the dip because China and the U.S. are both trying to gain leverage on each other. They're both going to be meeting in the next week in South Korea. Right there, back above 200. And so, I think the market is not really going to care too much about it. But nonetheless, that is why we had a little bit of pain intraday. But overall, I mean, we could have been at 647 like last week. And the fact that we're at 663 is not too bad to see. Iran, that stock right here, 68, lost 74, down about 2.19%. Clean Spark, that stock, 2311, that's up 5%. So you're seeing a little bit of a divergence right there in some of the data center plays. If we look at them right here, Hive, Riot, and Iran are down. Cypher, Clean Spark, Wolf, Bitfarms, Marathon, and Galaxy are green on the day. Bitfarms right there did fall below $6 in the morning, 575, now back to 644. And then if we look at what was the other one that I wanted to look at? There was if we look at the semiconductor names, a lot of them, if you take a look on the left-hand side of my screen, all of them are green except one, NVIDIA. So it's quite incredible. Broadcom up 2%, Dell up 3%, Lam Research up 4%, Micron up 2%, AMD looking like it might get that 238 close. That's up 9.2%, SMCI up 1%, even Intel up 4% on the day. AMD got that upgrade by HSBC. Intel also got an upgrade to $320 street high, but that stock's still selling off in the day. So you're seeing a little bit of a rotation into some of the other semiconductor names, which is fair. NVIDIA is a relatively large company. But NVIDIA is red on the day. All right, we got United earnings in about 10 minutes. I believe it's at 4:05, so it's not going to be right at the bell. Let's put a poll in the chat, United pump or dump. Also, let me know if anyone owns United. I don't think there's that many people here that own the airlines. Delta had a pretty strong earnings. I would imagine United has the same. United is the one I feel like I missed out on because every time I fly, it's United. And this stock was at $23 freaking a year and a half ago. And, just as a user of the company, I would have added some, but I never did. So United right there, 104.2. It has been a phenomenal name, up about 1% on the day, and we're going to see what happens on earnings. Wow, Buck Travel has 6,200 shares of United. Okay, so we have a decent amount of United. Did you figure out why rare earth went down? Well, here's a watch list on rare earth. As you can see on the left-hand side of the screen, critical metals down 24%, lithium Americas down 5%, Remex, which is the Vanguard rare earth minerals ETF, if anyone wants to just get exposure to the entire sector, REMX, that's down 2%, USAR down 10%, MP down 9%, TMQ down 20%. I don't think there is a reason other than these stocks have been up 3 to 5x literally in the past month. I mean, everything that Basant said about China should be a bullish catalyst for why you would want to get exposure to rare earth domestic suppliers in the United States if we're decoupling theoretically from China. But these stocks have also run a lot. They've run a lot. And as a result, you're probably, going to get a little bit of a pullback, which is what we got today. Yeah, Amcor, shout out to this one. It made a move today, 31.28, not too bad. That's up 4.2%. Gave people a decent entry on the Trump-China stuff back at 28.70. Again, it's cheap. It trades at one-time sales. So, when you get a stock that's cheap and that actually has a fundamental role in the supply chain for onshoring in semiconductors, you tend to get a decent opportunity right there in Amcor. Doing okay. That's up about 4.6% on the day. S&P up 0.4. All right, folks, here we go. We got 10 seconds. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We got United earnings coming up, and we'll get into a bunch of different headlines we had throughout the day. Wednesday, October 15th, the power is live. We're not getting sucked up by the data centers like we did in the morning. 4 p.m., the stock market is now closed. All right, Wednesday, we are done for the day. We are done for the day. By the way, the reason the power went out in the morning for me is probably not data centers, but it made me curious and I started doing some more research. This data center issue is like a legit issue when it comes to electricity prices. And we'll talk more about it, but it just prompted me to look more into what exactly is happening across the country with these data centers. It's not pretty. It's not pretty. There's some specific stuff going on in Oregon in particular that are not pretty. So we'll talk more about it. But Tesla right here, down about 1.4, or actually up 1.4% on the day. NVIDIA goes flat on the day, 179.87, although every other semiconductor name had a pretty incredible day. S&P 500 up about 0.5%. AMD, 238.50 on the close. Not too bad. That's up 9.4% on the day. SoFi gets the $28 close. Google up 2.3. Grab basically flat on the day at 592. Amazon, this one continues to be hated. We'll talk more about Amazon. I bought more today. I mean, it's becoming a long-term position at this point. It's not becoming a trade anymore like I originally thought. Amcor as well still is a trade up to 50. But I mean, if Amcor continues to execute and, the semiconductor ecosystem in America continues to grow, I mean, Amcor might turn into an actual position. But right now, that one is more of a trade. Meta right there, that's up 1.26%. Salesforce down again, 1.3%. PayPal down again, 1.68%. Apple introduced some new iPads and laptops with the M5 chip. That's up today. And then SMCI was up 1.6%. United, do we have their earnings yet? Whoop, we got their earnings. You got a green candle. What did you guys say? Pump or dump? 59% of you guys said pump. 59%. All right, so the majority are saying pump. Let me see if we can get their numbers. United, There we go. Mercado Libre, I didn't look at it today, but the reason it's probably down is we talked about it last week. Amazon is making a bigger push into Latin America. I really don't think that's a bear case for Mercado Libre, but the perception of that, it got some downgrades last week based on the idea that Amazon might take their lunch, which, I mean, it's Amazon at the end of the day, right? Like there's always going to be competitive threats from Amazon. I don't think that's a reason to sell it off, but potentially that could be the narrative that's hindering Mercado Libre right now. All right, we got the earnings. Here we go. 278 versus 267. That's a beat by 4%. On United, EPS is still down 17% year over year. Revenue is up 3% year over year. That is a miss on revenue. Very slight miss, 70 million. Not really that big of a miss. 15.2 versus 15.29. But they got a beat on the bottom line, a miss on the top line. I mean, that's not bad. That's not bad. United right here up 4%. How much is United up year to date? I think it's up 20% year to date. It is up, 9% year to date. Over the past year, it's up 60%. Over the past, or year to date, it's up 9%. So this one has not been a big mover. It's now up about 12% based on this after hours move. And United doing okay. Now, the real question is their metrics on the consumer, which, by the way, I have a couple of transcripts from the banks, and we'll talk about some of the delinquency rates, or at least the concept of delinquency rates that these banks mentioned on their earnings. But United's really going to have to give us something bullish around what they think about the state of travel. That's always going to be good for the consumer. Let's see if we can pull up their website and if we have any quotes from the CEO. Yeah, nothing up yet. It should be updating in like 5 minutes, but that's going to be the most important thing for United. Not really holding on to a lot of its green. It's going back and forth, but it is up 1%. Where did HIMS close on the day? HIMS 62.41. 62.41. That's up 15% on the day. Again, it got to that 65 level. HIMS hasn't seen 65 in a couple months, so really nice to see that breakout happen today. It's still shorted more than 30%. 62.45. Nebius got the close, I think, at 127, 125. Nebius was down 2% a day. CoreWeave, a new data center project in Texas. CoreWeave is working on that stock, up 4% as well on the day. United guided for Q4 adjusted EPS between $3 and $3.50 and expects the quarter to deliver the highest total operating revenue in its history. Wow. Dude, that is pretty freaking bullish. The highest operating income in history for United. $3.50 of EPS. I mean, the stock's not reacting like crazy, but that does not show that the consumer is not willing to travel. That is for sure. United also plans to invest $1 billion in 2026 as it benefits from improving economic conditions and strengthening travel demand. Wow. United saying they're ready to invest $1 billion because they're improving, or they're benefiting from improving economic conditions and better travel demand. That's quite incredible, dude. I didn't expect that type of result from United. I mean, we have seen consolidation, right, with Spirit going bankrupt and stuff as well. So it's not crazy to kind of see some of these results. Let me pull it up right here and see if we can get some coverage on United. But that goes green. That goes green. Operating margins, potentially because of AI, are increasing. Also, the price of oil is coming down. Price of oil coming down definitely helps the argument for United. Question is just now, can it continue to do what it needs to do? Let me pull this up right here. United does have a partnership with Archer. That is correct. It would be crazy if they invested in Archer, but I think they've already made a small investment in Archer a while ago. Okay, let's pull this up right here, see what we've got. Bitfarms down after hours. Are they diluting? Let's pull that up as well. I mean, their stock is hitting a pretty 52-week high. Oh, there is a red candle right there. It might just be algos, might be them diluting. We'll see. And then United Airlines continuing to. Bitfarms announces proposed offering of $300 million of convertible notes. There you go. $300 million of convertible notes. Why not? Now, granted, for Bitfarms, a lot of these companies, they're doing the same thing. They're seeing their stocks go up 6x. They're realizing, hey, maybe we don't, necessarily, we don't need to be shy of taking advantage of the liquidity that we're getting. And as a result, we're going to raise some capital. And it seems like that's what you're getting right there. Bitfarms slightly down on this new 622. That's not really reacting even that aggressively though. Hood, by the way, down. I think Bitcoin and Ethereum just a crappy day, and that's what was hurting Hood. Ethereum right there, 39.84, still below 4,000. Bitcoin at what, 112 on the day? 112. No, not Bitmine, Bitfarms. Bitmine dilutes every day. You don't got to worry about them. BM&R 53.67. At least it closed green. It was a bit red in the beginning of the day, but that is green. Okay, let me pull this up. So give me 1 sec, guys. My computer right here is not showing the exact feed that I want. So let me pull this up here. We'll also go to Trump and see what Trump's saying. Then we'll get into a couple of the other headlines that we have. Also, we'll talk about the Beige Book because the Fed put out their Beige Book and those comments were important. They were relatively bullish. So let's pull this up right here. Okay, this should be United earnings. Let's pull this up. We should be good to go. All right. Never mind. That feed is not working either. I don't know why my feed's being weird, but we'll get the content in a second. It's being kind of stupid. Oh, JB Hunt has earnings today as well. JBHNT. Okay, let's take a look at these guys. JB Hunt, that stock, wow, up 10% after hours. $13 billion company, transport for logistics. This one is also green. TSM is going to be later tonight. TSM is going to be tonight. And so we'll see what happens with TSM. No, the reason it's being weird, dude, is, oh, let me see if this works. When I share YouTube TV, it's just showing me a black screen, and it should be showing the actual content right here. Let me pull this up. All right, let me know if you guys see this or if it's a black screen. If you guys can see this, then it should be okay. If not, then it's being kind of weird.
Might be the winners and losers.
Oh, you guys can see it.
We're waiting for earnings. You know,
Out, Phil LeBeau has them. Phil.
Morgan, you're prescient. They were a strong beat. United on the third quarter, beating the street by earning $2.78 a share, well above the street expectation of $2.63. Revenue was a slight miss, but not by much. $15.22 billion. The street was expecting $15.32 billion. The numbers within the numbers for the quarter. You've got revenue per seat mile down 4.3%, cost per seat mile down 0.9%, and a pre-tax margin of 8%. And then there's the metrics that tell people where is United making money or doing well relative to its peers. When you take a look at domestic revenue per seat mile, down 3.3% in the third quarter. International revenue per seat mile down 7.1%. We saw a lot of flights and we saw some pricing pressure on some of those international markets that might explain the revenue per seat mile being a little lower compared to a year ago. Premium revenue, though, up 6%. Basic economy up 4%. Loyalty up 9%. So they're crushing it in terms.
All right, massive move on United. I think Trump's taking questions. Let's go over to him and then we'll keep going from there.
In the process, yeah, please.
Mr. President, thank you. Curious, why did you authorize the CIA to go into Venezuela? And is there more information you can share about these strikes on the alleged?
Well, I can't do
strike
that,
in the
but
Caribbean?
I authorized for two reasons, really. Number one, they have emptied their prisons into the United States of America. They came in through the, they came in through the border. They came in because we had an open border policy. And as soon as I heard that, I said, a lot of these countries, they're not the only country, but they're the worst abuser. And they've entered they've allowed thousands and thousands of prisoners, mental institution, people from mental institutions, insane asylums, emptied out into the United States. We're bringing them back, but that's a really bad, and they did it at a level.
All right, we'll go back to that. I think he had some comments about China and Russia. Those were the comments I wanted to see, so we'll pull that up in a second. However, after hours, folks, not only United, not only JB Hunt, what an incredible beat on the top and the bottom line for JB Hunt. AMD, she's moving 240 after hours. This looks like a healthy 240 as well. It hit it a couple days ago and it wasn't able to hold on to it. Let me see if there's a headline or if this is just a continued move after hours. AMD, no, I think it's just a continued move. No headlines outside of that Oracle GPU news that we got. JB Hunt, by the way, 21% EPS for a logistics company beat. My goodness. 176 versus 146, and then 1% beat on revenue, 3.05 versus 3.02. I mean, you don't see a company like JB Hunt for transportation services beating at the level they're beating. It reminds me of Morgan Stanley today, beating by 35%. AMD right there, still moving after hours. So JB, United, and AMD, 3 companies in totally different sectors, one in logistics, one in travel, and then one in semiconductors, all making a move. There you go. AMD 240 on the day. 240 on the day. I mean, I know a lot of you guys have AMD. This is your day. 10% move intraday. NVIDIA, the one that's kind of lagging, moving a little bit after hours. Maybe there's something in general that's getting the semiconductors happy. But AMD right here at 240. Semis after hours, I think, are still all moving. Yeah, look at them. All of them green. Qualcomm, Marvell, ARM at 170. Marvell fell to 62 after earnings. That was a great pickup. 88.71. Broadcom right here from that OpenAI partnership. ASML still up 2% on the day. SMCI up 1%. And then Micron trying to crack above 200. Yes, Bitfarms did do an offering. That stock is, I mean, it's down 50 cents. It's not that big of a deal, but $300 million offering. I mean, these companies are doing offerings in the hundreds of millions, sometimes in the billions, and the stocks don't even care. There is so much liquidity in this market. So many people willing to buy every dip based on, again, that stat that I showed you guys about last week being the biggest week ever for stock market inflows when the S&P was down 1%. The money's there. The only way people stop buying the dip on names like that are if those names completely crap the bed in regards to their execution, or if the entire market just says, you know, like rare earths today, right? Like, I don't think there's a single reason why these stocks on average were down 15% today, other than the market took a breather. And until that happens to some of the other names, you know, people are going to continue to buy those dips and not be that afraid. Now, Oklo ended at 172. It got all the way to 193. So if you bought at 190, you're probably pissed off today. But it's still up from 140 last week, which is pretty damn incredible. Kramer made a statement about metals. That's why they're down. Okay, maybe that maybe that was the reason. But in general, didn't seem like that was that crazy of a headline. All right, let's get back to Trump, see if he's saying anything else, and then we'll get into the other headlines that we have.
We've taken care of the sea. There's no hope that everybody's, you know, they're involved in it. I'm not. I'm the one that had to suffer through it and ultimately win. But what they did was criminal. Deranged Jack Smith, in my opinion, is a criminal. And I noticed his interviewer was, I think that was Weissman. And I hope they're going to look into Weissman too. Weissman's a bad guy. And he had somebody in Lisa, who was his puppet, worked in the office really as the top person. And I think that she should be looked at very strongly. There was tremendous criminal activity having to do. If we don't have fair elections in this country, we're not going to have a country. And I've said it from the beginning, fair elections and borders. And we need also fair press. Because if you don't...
Okay. More politics from Trump. The only 2 quotes I have from what he said, which are less pure politics here, is number 1, he's looking at San Francisco as his next target for National Guard troops as part of his crime crackdown. He's been putting out the National Guard in DC, Chicago, and now it looks like San Francisco is his next target. That's one quote that we had. By the way, Mark Benioff is supportive of this. He is a San Francisco native. He has donated billions of dollars to the city, headquarters of Salesforce. So even Mark Benioff is not upset at Trump necessarily thinking of deploying the National Guard. And then number 2, Trump said, Modi assured me, Modi, India's president, that they won't buy Russian oil. Trump says Modi assured me that they wouldn't buy Russian oil. I think that's BS. I think it's very hard to believe Modi's not going to buy Russian oil. India has 1.5 billion people. They need energy, and they like cheap energy. And no one else is buying Russia's oil, so I think India is going to keep buying. So, I mean, I'm not in the mind of Modi, but it would be very hard for me to believe that they're going to stop buying Russian oil. Like, I don't think that's the case. But that's what Trump did say. We missed that quote live, but that is one of the quotes that he said. He also said, now we need to get China to stop buying Russian oil. So he said, Modi's going to stop buying it, or Modi told me that he's going to stop buying it. And now we need China to stop buying it. I don't know what the incentive is for China to stop buying it. The other reason the indices fell during the day is because there was a Wall Street Journal article that came out that said China is trying to get America's stock market to go down And, the essential basic argument there was that they want to gain leverage for the negotiation on the talks they will have later next week in Korea. So I guess it's kind of them going back and forth, whether it's soybeans, cooking oils, whatever it is, rare earths. And that's what's creating some of this pain. I'm still trying to get United's full. Oh, here we go. We got the update. All right, let's see if we can get some quotes here from the CEO. So here's what they say. We've invested in customers at every price point. Those investments are over after almost a decade, combined with great service from our people, have allowed United to win and retain brand loyal customers. They're right on that. I mean, I only use United, leading to economic resilience, even with macroeconomic volatility through the first 3 quarters of the year, and significant upside as the economy and demand are improving in the fourth quarter. United's going to make significant investments, over $1 billion for Starlink installations, seatback screens, and 25% more on food, and $1 billion in customer experience for 2026. That seems rather bullish. And then you have your actual results, which were a beat on the top and the bottom line. Wow. Bard initiates coverage on Rocket Lab with an outperform rating and a price target of 83. Look at that. The stock goes higher. The banks initiate coverage. 83 on Rocket Lab. All right. Well, that's higher than 70. That's higher than 70. Did they say artificial intelligence here? I don't see any AI terms here yet. We're going to have to go through their earnings and see. This is a good quarter by United, dude. $1 billion, and they raised their EPS guidance from 3 to 350, the highest operating income they would ever have in history. That is not bad. And that is primarily based most of the airlines make their money from first class and business class subsidizing everything else. It doesn't look like that's happening for United. It looks like the actual economy class is doing well enough, giving capacity is up 7.2% year over year, which means more people are picking United. And that's enough for them to continue to inch out a profit. Tesla right there, 435.69. Rocket Lab, are we getting any move after hours based on that initiation? Rocket Lab 69.68. After hours is what we got. Guggenheim initiated coverage on Uber this morning at 140. Uber 94.51. Uber was at 62 in the beginning of the year. That's when Bill Ackman was loading up a lot. So it has made a pretty good move throughout the year. By the way, one of Uber's biggest partners, Waymo, they're coming to London. They are coming to London. This is something we forgot to talk about on the market open, but Waymo is officially coming to London. So bullish Google and Uber. And it looks like that's going to be happening next year. That's going to be their European debut. And that's what you're going to have for Waymo. So that's what we got. Is the audio bad? Let me know. If audio is good, audio's bad. Or it should be okay. Good now? Okay, cool. Good. So Alphabet is going to begin testing a small fleet with safety drivers across a 100 square mile area in London before a commercial rollout in 2026. And going back to Uber, it's partnering with Uber, or Uber-backed company Move, which is one of the companies in the UK, to manage the fleet as well. So that's what we have here. Amit, move back in with your parents. Dude, to be honest, like the amount of technical difficulties, might as well have just stayed home, dude. Goodness gracious. Might as well have just stayed home. Here is Basent this morning. All right, so we'll get into some of the other headlines we have. We'll keep updating whenever we see some Trump quotes come in. Here's what Basent said this morning on if the United States is getting ready to invest in other companies besides the 5 that they took equity stakes in.
The other big change on industrial policy from the administration has been around taking stakes in companies, private companies that you guys deem strategic and important for the U.S. I think there have been 5 now. Are there going to be more of those?
I wouldn't be surprised because, again, many of these, when we get an announcement like this week with China on the rare earths, you realize we have to be self-sufficient or we have to be sufficient with our allies. So when you are facing a non-market economy like China, then you have to exercise industrial policy. So on rare earths, for 20 years, anytime, rare earths are not rare. What is rare is the processing and refining.
Which China, the other.
So again, Basent making the argument of literally saying, I wouldn't be surprised if we buy more companies or we take more equity stakes. And he's thinking of it from a national security perspective, which is likely why he wants to continue doing this. I think Trump's talking about India and more Russian oil stuff. So let's pull over to this and see what we have.
because he's killing a lot of Russians. Again, it doesn't make him look good. It's a war that he should have won in 1 week, and he's now going into his 4th year. That does not make this big so-called war machine look good. But he could make a settlement. We're willing to settle. I thought we had a deal. The hatred of the two leaders is very, it's an obstacle. It's an obstacle. There's no question about it. But I thought we had a deal 2 months ago. Who would think I created peace in the Middle East and can't get the two guys to settle? But I think we'll get them. But if India doesn't buy oil, it makes it much easier. And they're not going to buy. They assured me they will. Within a short period of time, they will not be buying oil from Russia. And
wow. I mean, bro, I don't believe that. But if he's portraying it accurately, that Modi assured him within a short period of time was the quote, that they will stop buying Russian oil, that would be a massive win diplomatically. I struggle to believe that India actually would stop, but if that's true, that would make it easier for Trump to navigate the Russia situation.
they'll go back to Russia after the war's over. Jennifer?
On the shutdown, sir, are FBI officials being paid right now? Are all the FBI employees being paid, and are all the...
Well, that's what I understand. I hope so.
Thanks to you, everybody. Thanks to your great work, Mr. President. The 1811 special agents at the FBI are going to receive their paychecks.
Got a lot of people paid, actually. We got the people that we want paid, okay? And we want the FBI paid. We want the military paid. We got the people that we want paid. And I'll tell you, the Democrats, they don't talk about this. You know, we're getting rid of programs that we didn't like, but that were negotiated in, but we didn't like. We're terminating those programs, and they're going to be terminated on a permanent basis. And it's thousands of people, and it's you know, billions of dollars. We're getting rid of a lot of things that we never wanted because of the fact that they made this stupid move. And they don't want to talk about it. You know, they have their day coming up. I hear very few people are going to be there, by the way. But they have their day coming up, and they want to have their day in the sun. But they should really make a deal. So what we're doing, I mean, they call him Darth Vader, but he's actually a very nice person, Russell Vogt. But Russell Vogt is really terminating tremendous numbers of Democrat projects. There's not only jobs, I mean, the project in Manhattan, the project in New York, it's billions and billions of dollars that Schumer has worked 20 years to get. It's terminated. Tell him it's terminated, Jennifer. All right.
On Hamas, sir, what is your understanding of the pace?
All right, so those are the main quotes. India, Russia. He continues to be upset at Russia. Potentially assures that India will stop buying Russian oil. He even did say India can get back to buying it after the war, but he wants them to stop in the middle of the war. I mean, that would be a pretty dramatic change for India to stop buying Russian oil, regardless of if there's a war or not. So I guess long-term, we're going to see if that ends up actually playing out. United, by the way, taking a little bit of a dump. So it had that green. It's now lost most of its momentum after hours. Still a phenomenal earnings if you're a United shareholder. 103.86. NVIDIA right there at 180. S&P, that's up 0.5%. And then Palantir ended at 179 on the day as well. Where would India go for oil? Well, I guess Trump would say to the U.S. The problem is that oil is going to be way more expensive than Russia. The reason Russian oil is cheap to India is because no one wants to buy Russian oil. So, you know, Russia's desperate to sell it, so they're willing to give them a lot better of a price. And India has a lot of people, 1.5 billion. They need energy. So I would be quite surprised if they actually, even in the next, you know, even if Trump says, hey, for 5 months, stop buying it, and then you can buy it 5 months later, like that's 5 months of not as much energy as they had before, or at least spending more money to buy that energy. So it would be quite incredible to see if that ends up playing out. Oil prices, by the way, fell another 0.5% today. Nothing too crazy. 58.58 on WTI crude. Where was VG and Next? VG was actually up in the morning. VG up 2%, and then Next, that one was flat all the day. Okay, Amazon. So I want to show everyone this stat because I think this stat is really important. We talked about the EV to EBITDA multiples. Well, two things on Amazon. First, before we even look at the stat, take a look at this. Reuters reported Anthropic is expecting $9 billion of revenue by the end of this year, $20 billion for the base case in 2026. I mean, again, you know, AI needs to have explosive growth to justify all these CapEx investments. For Anthropic to do they were doing 1 billion expected in January this year. That's a 9x increase in less than 10 months. If they do 20 billion in 26, that's a basically 250% move year over year. And that's the base case. Who has a massive stake in Anthropic? Amazon. So that's one thing in the context of Amazon. Now, Google owns some Anthropic as well, but this is more so a question of just like AI is working out and the AWS workloads that Anthropic is running on are continuing to do okay. This was the stat that I thought was quite incredible today. So take a look at this. We talked about Amazon's EV to EBITDA multiples being the lowest in its history, which is true. But this goes even further. The average Mag 7 EV to EBITDA multiple, enterprise value over their EBITDA, is 39.3. Amazon is 17.3. That is a 56% discount compared to the other 6 companies in the Mag 7. Now, there is a reason for that. And the reason for that is likely the narrative that Amazon has to deal with tariffs and AWS is not accelerating and whatever other bear case you can come up with Amazon. But that seems to be a pretty egregious discount compared to every other Mag 7. 56% compared to the other 6 names, that 2 of them that aren't even growing, Apple and Tesla. So, I mean, again, it's just one of those things where I don't think it's crazy to take a nibble here. And if you have to bag hold Amazon, you're bag holding Amazon, which is, something I guess you can live with if it comes to bag holding any of the Mag 7 names. Okay, so that's what we got on Amazon. Meta right here, that one ended at 720 on the day, or 717. That one's still up 1.28%. A lot of people are saying, would you buy Amazon leaps? No. And the reason for that is because I don't know if this stock is going to make a move that's good enough for a leap. You got to have a real sense of conviction going over the next 2 years that, the stock makes a massive move. And like, do I think it gets to 300 one day? Yes. Do I think it gets there by like December 2026? I have no idea. So I really do think just buying stock here is easier versus having to navigate the options. But if you're super bullish, that changes. Oh, we got a Trump quote from China. Hold on. He's still, let's see what he said.
With the, conventional, we will call it, and what see that beautiful plane? And many of those countries relatively are very, as an example, if you look at Pakistan and Iran, I told them I was in the midst of negotiating a trade deal with Iran, and Pakistan was going to be in line. And because of tariffs, they all want to negotiate much differently. We were making a good deal. And then I heard that they're shooting at each other. And I said during one of my conversations, are you guys going to go to war? 2 nuclear powers. We are thinking about, I said, here's the deal. You go to war, I'm going to put a 200% tariff. I'm going to stop you from doing any business in the United States. I said it to both of them. Within 24 hours, the war ended. That would have been a nuclear war. And again, the Prime Minister of Pakistan, who was here 2 weeks ago, said that man saved many millions of lives in front of a whole group of people because he thought it was going to be war. But when it came to war or having to pay massive tariffs.
I think he meant to say India and Pakistan, right? Not Iran and Pakistan. Content in chief. Content in chief. By the way, we didn't get to the quote yet, but the quote is, we are in a trade war with China. That is the exact quote that he just said. We didn't hear it, but that he did say it. We are in a trade war with China.
The tariffs overrode. That's why it's so important. Not only the money, we're taking in trillions of dollars, not only the money, the power to keep peace, the power to be used for good is enormous. But a lot of people didn't understand tariffs. It's also made us very rich. We have a big case coming up in the Supreme Court, and I will tell you, that's one of the most important cases in the history of our country. Because if we don't win that case, we will be a weakened, troubled, financial mess for many, many years to come. I don't even know if survivable is a good term. And if we do, we're going to be the most powerful economic country in the world. And all we're doing is using them as a defense against what took place for many years. China would charge us tariffs. It was incredible, but we weren't allowed to charge. We're allowed to do whatever we want. We just had presidents that didn't want to do it for whatever reason. And it was nothing. But of the 8 wars, I was saying 7, of the 8 wars, I would say tariffs are directly responsible for me ending 6 of them, 5 or 6. Without the tariffs, you have wars raging all over the world. With the tariffs, other than Russia, we have no wars out there. And we've made a lot of good friends, too. Tariffs are so important to our national security. If we don't have tariffs, we don't have national security. Our country would suffer a level that, because they use so strongly on us. As an example, the European Union, they won't take our cars, they won't take our agriculture, they won't take anything, but they send their cars in, Mercedes, BMW, Volkswagen, by the millions. We don't send any cars. They don't take them. They were tariffing us out. Agricultural products, they don't take our agriculture. They want their farmers to do it. I understand that. But it was very unfair, and they were tariffing our product. They're keeping up by using tariffs. And we didn't use them, but I used them. And now we made one of the great deals with your $650 billion they pay us. And we've evened it out. It's really a good thing to see. And you have to understand, they've all signed. Japan, South Korea. I mean, South Korea, $350 billion up front. Japan, $650 billion. And they've all agreed to it. They're all happy. But before, it was a total ripoff. And if we don't have the use of tariffs, we have no national security. This country will have no financial security, will not have national security. And the people that brought the lawsuit are people that are aligned with foreign nations that are now being treated fairly, as opposed to just ripping us off and ripping us asunder. So, but if we are not allowed to use what other people use against us, there's no defense. It'll be a disaster for America. That's why I think I'm going to go to the Supreme Court to watch it. I've not done that, and I had some pretty big cases. I think it's one of the most important cases ever brought, because we will be defenseless against the world. Okay?
You'll go to the tariff case?
Did you have one? Yes, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to ask you about the Georgia Senate race. I know it's very early, but there's some.
All right, so I think that was the main thing that we are going to get from that press conference. He went on a ramble about tariffs. The tariff stuff, we haven't heard much about it, honestly, for the past couple months, ever since Friday, when the S&P fell 3% after the whole China stuff, and then yesterday with the soybean stuff. So tariffs coming back into the national conversation. Markets are relatively okay after hours, not really moving too much on this. But Trump basically said we are in a trade war with China. India assured me they would stop buying Russian oil. Tariffs are key to national security. And 5 or 6 wars have been solved because of, quote unquote, my use of tariffs. So, I mean, he's trying to, and then he went on to say that, this is the most important case in the history of the Supreme Court, which, to be honest, I don't think he's wrong about. I mean, if the Supreme Court reverses what he's done with the tariffs for the past 9 months, the first year of the Trump administration basically goes to shit. Because the most important thing he's been able to do for the past year is get all these trade deals and negotiations and get Europe to buy $650 billion of natural gas and Japan to invest $500 billion. Like, all of that happened because of tariffs. If the tariffs go away, I mean, I wonder if those countries renege on their deal, because now they don't have to worry about these tariffs. So that is going to be a very important Supreme Court case. And it looks like Trump is continuing to remind everybody how important it actually matters. S&P 500 right there, 664.94. Bitcoin's dumping. How bad? Yeah, it's about a $1,400 candle roundabout. Is gold still pumping? Bro, gold and silver. Silver is at 53. Gold still 4,200. Yo, this digital gold shit is not really working out, bro. What's going on? Thought this digital gold shit was the new gold. It's not really acting like it. It's not really acting like it. 110.7 on Biddy. And silver and Bitcoin, or silver and gold, doing their thing. I mean, it's not really dumping. I agree. It's this is Bitcoin, right? It gets down to 108, 107. I'd say it's dumping, but it's not really dumping. Oh, where's BM&R then? BM&R 53.11 as Ethereum goes back to 39.50. What's Bitcoin up year to date? That's a good question. Bitcoin on January 1st was 93,000. Today it's at, let's just call it 110.8. That is a 19% move year to date. Gold is up 60%. So gold is outperforming Bitcoin by 3x. That's kind of crazy, bro. And that's also, not the best for Hoodie. Hoodie was close to losing 130 today. And, I get more interested in the 120s, but 134 on Hood. Coinbase also not doing the best. That's down about 2%. And then MicroStrategy. Are we below 300 on MSTR? We are below 300 on MSTR. We are below 300 on MSTR. So there you go. Oh, we got a headline from Wall Street Journal. Trump White House dinner includes Lockheed Martin, Microsoft, Meta, Google, Amazon, and Palantir. Trump's having a White House dinner today? I wonder if they're going to record that and if we're going to have leaders of all those companies there. Yeah, that's a headline we just got right now. Trump's having a White House dinner with all of these companies today. Now, look, obviously I'm just picking on Bitcoin for fun right here, just given gold's outperformance. But it's undeniable that this thing has not really worked as well over the past few months. But we're getting into a rate cutting cycle. We're getting into a quantitative easing cycle. So it's not crazy to imagine that these risk on assets obviously have a bid that will be associated with them. It's just as of now, that has not played out. Yeah, isn't the government closed? How are they able to do these meetings? Isn't the government closed? That's a headline we got right now. I don't know if that meeting's tonight or if it's this week. Well, Trump's traveling next week, so it has to be soon if he's having a White House dinner with these companies. Palantir has never been at these meetings. We've never seen them publicly this year at these dinners. I wonder if Karp's going to be there. I wonder if it's going to be Thiel. I wonder who's going to represent, but maybe Sham, who's, gotten closer to the administration, especially with the Department of War. So I guess we're going to get some more updates on that later. Aren't they voting on the budget? I think they have another budget vote tomorrow, based on Trump's comments this morning about how he's thinking of the Democrats and Bessent's comments as well about kind of not capitulating to the Democrats. I don't know if we're actually going to get a meaningful vote, but we will see. Let's go back to Trump and see if we're getting anything else, and then we'll move on to some of the other headlines.
It the second time, too. But I know Georgia very well. I love Georgia. Those people are great.
These articles and giggle because it can.
They write stories. Why aren't they doing this? And we'll leave. I don't have to leave it up to them, but I choose to at this moment, at least. But there's never been anybody treated in the history of politics. They say the two worst treated presidents by the media, etc., was that man right there, the late, great Abraham Lincoln, and this guy right there, Andrew Jackson. They say Andrew Jackson was treated terribly. They give him number one and number two, but that was before I came along, Newt. I say I have number one times 10. Nobody's been treated like I've been treated. And I did a great job. We had a great first term. And we had one of the most successful economies in history, et cetera. I rebuilt the military. We did a tremendous amount. The last part, we had a horrible thing called COVID, and we handled that well. We made ventilators for nations all over the world. We did a great job. Probably never get credit for it. Look at the therapeutics, the Regeneron, all the different things, the vaccines, all the things we did. We did a great job, but we had to focus on that. But we had the best economy in the history of our country. We're blowing it away right now. Look at the stock market. It hit another all-time high today. That's 48 days out of the...
That is not true. The S&P 500 did not hit an all-time high. That was last week on Friday before his Truth Social post. But it did have a nice recovery since Friday, but we did not hit an all-time high today.
Few days that I've served, 48 days have already hit record highs. And we have, maybe most importantly, the number we have now, I was saying 17, it's over $18 trillion is being poured into our country. It's because of the election and because of tariffs. Without the tariffs, you wouldn't have probably 18 cents. It's because of the tariffs, because there are no tariffs if they build in our country. And they understand that. So we have medical companies coming over. We have the AI. We're dominating China in AI. Everybody said that's impossible. We're dominating. I'm letting these massive plants build their own electric generating plants. They're becoming utilities in addition to everything. Maybe they'll make more money with that. Who knows? But they're building their own electric because we have an old grid. You wouldn't be able to do that. And we're dominating China. We're dominating with AI, which seems to be the new big thing. That's the new internet. That's the new whatever. So we're very happy with the job we're doing. I'm very happy with the job they're doing. But when you tell me about attacking a political opponent, there's never been, and I'm a legitimate opponent. I watch my son. He's got the #1 best-selling book now. My son, Eric, is a wonderful kid. That guy spent so much time with subpoenas. He got more subpoenas than anybody in the history of our country. Think of it. And he's an innocent, good boy. He's a good kid. He's always been a good kid. All of my children are good. They went through hell. My children went through federal grand juries on a hoax. Think of it. You have Adam Schiff and Hillary Clinton and others make up a hoax and then wanting to put, so they know it's a hoax, and they go before the press, say Donald Trump Jr. will go to jail because of what he's done with Russia. I'll never forget, I get a call from my son, Don, and he said, Dad, I'm being accused of something with Russia. I don't know anything about Russia. He didn't know anything about, think of it, how bad they are. They say he'll go to prison for the rest of his life. He knew nothing about it. On a hoax, the Russian hoax, Russia hoax, on a story that they made up. And they made it up in order to explain I beat it. But think of it, they want to put my son in jail for something that they made up. So they know they made it up. And they say he will serve the rest of his life in prison. These are sick, bad people. And don't tell me about us going after them. If anything, we've been very, very soft. I wouldn't be that soft, I'll tell you that. Thank you very much, everybody.
Well, pretty aggressive tone by Trump to end out this press conference, and not exactly the happiest in the context of some of these questions around what they're doing on crime. S&P 500 right there, 664.67. Again, the main quotes from what we got on that are rooted in, we are officially in a trade war with China, is what he says. India has assured me they wouldn't stop buying Russian oil, and then 5 or 6 wars have been solved because of my use of tariffs. So that's what we got from Mr. Trump after hours. Again, United earnings, not too bad. Stocks down 2% after hours, but still a pretty good earnings. And that was the only earnings we had today. Tomorrow we get TSM. That's going to be the big one. And we'll see what we get when TSM reports. SoFi lost 29 today. AMD losing 240 after hours, but still at 239, which is also still pretty good. All right, that's what you got. Let's get into some more macro headlines. So take a look at this. Going back to the conversation on gold, 2 charts on this that are pretty incredible. Gold hitting above 4,200 again. Bank of America, 43% of global fund managers say long gold is the most crowded trade, according to a survey of 160 participants with over 400 billion in assets. Gold has reclaimed the lead after 3 consecutive months where long Mag 7 topped the list. So long gold is a larger trade right now than long Mag 7. Short, the US dollar has fallen 2 straight months from 24% to 8%. That used to be a more popular trade a couple months ago. Now that's not as popular. 39% of professional investors from the survey do not own gold in any of their portfolios. And the average investor's allocation to gold is just 2.4%, near an all-time low. I'll tell you right now, I don't own any gold. So, I mean, and you know, I'm sure plenty of you guys own gold in the chat, but I think a far majority of retail investors are not allocated to gold. They're allocated probably a little bit more to crypto and equities, but not as much gold. So the idea that gold is still only 2.4% of everyone's portfolio on an aggregate basis means there might be a lot more demand rushing in to gold. And then if you take a look at this chart right here, the Wall Street average allocation to gold professionally is 2.4%. The Wall Street average allocation to crypto, as per Bank of America, 0.4. So you have 4x more, 5x more the amount of assets in gold from an institutional perspective than to crypto, even though, you know, the crypto ETFs are doing very well. But if gold barely has an allocation, crypto has almost nothing compared to gold. And theoretically, that should be a tailwind for both assets. I mean, it's already been a pretty good tailwind for gold, but you know, maybe that continues to be a tailwind for Bitcoin and Ether, which are only 0.4% of the overall assets. Actually, no, I do have some gold. I have this bad boy. Yes, I do have some gold. I do have this Robinhood card. So this doesn't work, by the way. This was one of the first ones they made This is like one of the early renditions of it, but this is real good. Dude, I got this thing when, hold on, what price was gold in March of 2024? March of 2024, gold was freaking 2,000, 2,000, 2,400. No, 2,000, 22, 23, 22. I mean, this shit is up. This is done better than some stocks I own, bro. Yes, this is real gold. This is one of the real Robinhood gold cards. It is scratched. Yeah, it was one of their first prototypes that they made. It was one of the first prototypes that they had. So I got this like a day after they officially unveiled the gold card. By the way, a lot more people have been getting it over the past couple of weeks. I mean, a lot of more screenshots I'm seeing on Twitter of people getting their gold card. So you are seeing that roll out a lot more. But I don't know. That's weird, bro. There's such a small allocation to gold and crypto, yet gold is the one that has performed 3x above crypto, which is incredible. And you're likely going to see more of that potentially across the board. All right, S&P 0.39%, AMD 9.72% after hours. Oh, wow. Uranium royalty is up 46% after hours. UROY. What the heck is this? 27% after hours, 42% intraday. This is a $600 million market cap. UROY, volume of 18 million versus 3 million. The U.S. government, they took a stake? Really? It's got to be a rumor. Hold on, let's see. Goodness, we just played the clip of Besant saying he wouldn't be surprised to get more stakes. 4 million into calls today, 7.5, 2026. Someone or the collective market traded 4 million worth of premium on those calls today. I don't see a headline on the government taking a stake in these guys, but it feels like that's the headline if this is up 25% after hours. Turd says, I'm so mad I sold this a month ago. Uranium royalty, huh? Just full ported this. Dude, it has to be a government stake. Operates as an exploration company which engages in acquiring and assembling a portfolio of royalties and investing in companies with exposure to uranium and physical uranium. Okay, so it's a mining company and a holding company, and that is green after hours. I still don't see any headline on it. This has to be, but this type of a move doesn't happen just off pure speculation. There's got to be like a Reuters or a Bloomberg article potentially saying the government's investing. I don't see that yet. I don't see that. All right, well, that's the move. They're based in Canada. You need to figure out a way to find these companies before they jump. Same thing with the OpenAI partnerships. Dude, if I could find these companies before they jump 40% after hours, yeah, we would all be making a lot of money. Some of these, dude, like, yeah, I mean, look, the only way I think to really get allocation to these names before they jump is you look at what's similar to their competitors. So rare earth metals, right? CRML was in the niche of a TMQ, an MP, a USAR, and an LAC. You had 4 examples before CRML took off that the US was investing in these companies. You would have had to blindly take the bet that maybe CRML is the next one and basically get lucky, unless you had some inside information. So, I mean, it's really hard to figure out which company the US is going to take a stake in. But when they do, obviously, they fly. The good thing about this is all those companies ran even after the stake was announced. So it's not like the stake was the top. There was like another, I mean, for some of them, 1 to 2x left. The question is if they're officially topping up. But it's not easy. It's not easy to necessarily just see them. They have revenue of 48 million. Yeah, it's a small cap, dude. It was less than 200 million today before this move. Wait, it's a Canadian company? Oh, hold on. If that kind of changes the narrative. Oh, yeah. British Columbia. Well, I mean, TMQ is also in British Columbia. Yeah, I don't think that matters. TMQ is also in Vancouver. And they're taking a stake in TMQ. So, yeah, that's probably not a big deal. I mean, that's likely not the reason why they wouldn't investing in them or wouldn't not make the investment. We got another headline. Hewlett Packard Enterprise to hike their dividend to 10%. Wow. Adding $3 billion to their buybacks. That's HPE, right? Is that stock actually down? Is that the right ticker? additional buybacks and a 10% dividend. Why is that stock down 6%? They're also targeting $3.5 billion free cash flow by fiscal year 2028. Why is that one down? That's amazing news. $3 billion buyback, an increase of 10% on the divvy, unless they decrease growth. Is this the wrong stock? Is it HPQ? No, I think Hewlett Packard Enterprise is HPE, I think. But HPQ also is flat. No, a 10% boost, not a 10% dividend yield, but a 10% boost to their current dividend. But both of those stocks not really moving right there. Palantir again, 179.80, and then NVIDIA right here, 180.19. Okay, for those that haven't seen the Palantir video, let me show this. Again, Karp and Ilyano and the team went to South Korea, and they launched the merge. It was a pretty epic video. I mean, if you're an investor in Palantir, you're definitely gonna like this, and it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool what they pulled off in Korea. So here's a minute 30 on what they did over the past week.
Yeah, we got to get it out raw. Hey. Welcome. I love my Korean fans. Are you in the Korean military? Yeah, here, you can have Oh, so we have some swag for the little kid. Thank you. Thank you. Cool. And it was so Thank you. Oh, both impressive. You increased your bank account, you increased your mind. Yeah.
That was a great quote. Someone said, I bought the stock after reading your book, and he was like, cool, you increased your bank account, you increased your mind. That was so cool.
Thank you. Oh, both impressive. You increased your bank account, you increased your mind. Yeah. So very clear. Yeah, the security guys are going to go effing nuts. Yeah. Well, I'm very happy to be here. And actually, according to my mom, Korean culture is the pinnacle of all cultures. Wow. So I'm very happy to get all this love. Yeah. Nice to meet you.
Well, Karp is obviously becoming a rock star. I had a conversation with a journalist at Fortune today that's doing a piece on the Palantir shareholder letters. And basically they asked me, what do I think as a shareholder of the shareholder letters, which, I mean, some people don't like them. Me, because I'm a big philosophy guy, I've loved them for the past 3 years, getting an actual letter that you can read that dissects all the intersections of business, philosophy, their approach to sales and everything that, Karp integrates into those letters. And basically she was like, do you think people think the letters are weird? I'm like, yeah, people probably think a CEO quoting French philosophers from the 1800s is weird in his quarterly updates. But I mean, I think it's freaking cool. And I think a lot of people do appreciate the interweaving of not only the business results. Again, the business is performing, right? They're growing 48%. So if they weren't growing, people probably wouldn't care about the philosophical letters. But Karp actually explaining why they're growing. I think these shareholder letters are really going to stand the test of time, and they will be studied in business school over the next 50 to 100 years. Because if Palantir ends up becoming one of the most valuable companies in the world, one of the most important software companies in the world, a lot of people are going to study the story on how. And part of the story is the philosophy of how they believe in business in the first place. So I liked it. And I think that piece is going to come out, I think, tomorrow. So we might get that article out tomorrow. Tesla right there up about 1.6% after hours. NVIDIA up a little bit, and the S&P 665. That is up 0.5% as well. UROY is up on a rumor that the U.S. is buying a stake in them. I can't find confirmation of that rumor. It's now down from 640. So it's already losing a lot of the hype it had after hours, but still up about 15%. HIMS is up because of the launch of menopause products for HERS. That is the other section of their business. I did sell half of my HIMS today. I'm letting the other half ride, but again, I just don't want to make this into a massive, massive position. So it did take some profits today. But HIMS is still up 15% on the day. Are you still adding to Palantir at these levels? No, I bought it at 171. But look, here's the thing about Palantir. I've said a billion times the valuation is aggressive and the multiple is expensive. The only reason I'm even DCAing when it drops 10% is because I've been buying since 6. So the margin of safety of me buying here is just adding more shares to the stack. It's not like it's a brand new position or anything, and it's also not giving me a $180 average. But dude, if they give us a 50% quarter, you're telling me this thing doesn't want to make a run at 190, especially if we have a bull market towards the end of the year. And then if they increase guidance for 2025 closer to 50 or 26 to 50%, and if operating margins continue to inflect higher from that 60% free cash flow margin, adjusted operating margins at 44. I mean, if they increase the margins and the top line revenue, I don't think this thing stays stuck in the 180s. I really don't. So I think there's a move to be made. If it ends out the year at 180, it started the year at 70s. I think most of us would still be pretty happy, but I think there's a world where it makes a run for 200 by end of year. But we're going to have to see. We're going to have to see what happens. Where is the UROY rumor? I can't find it, which is why it is literally a rumor. I don't see any articles on it. I see some tweets on it, but no actual articles. So, I mean, it's just pure hype after hours for why this one is going green. Let's look at the stock draft. Let's see what we've got going on there. Matt should still be winning. Matt is up 52. I'm at 40. Rocket Lab and ASTS still helping him out. Tanner's up 20. Steve has 7.8. And then Chris is up 11.9. So Matt's still leading 52% on the day. All roads still lead to TSM. Yeah, I mean, look, TSM earnings are going to happen tomorrow. We've already gotten their quarterly, or not their quarterly, their monthly results for the past 2 months. And I mean, you're talking about 40 to 60% growth across all their categories. So TSM is going to crush it. But the stock is up a decent chunk this year. It's up 51%. It's over $1 trillion in market cap. So, is this thing priced for perfection? I don't fully know, but I doubt there's going to be a lack of demand issue. I mean, if you listen to the earnings calls for TSM for the past couple quarters, the CEO makes it a really big point to say, we don't have a demand issue. we just don't have the supply to deal with all this demand. I mean, every time he's like, guys, it's not a demand thing. We're just trying to build out our infrastructure to make this take place. So I don't think we're going to get any issues from TSM on overall demand for semiconductors. Okay, 2 quotes that I was looking at in the earnings transcripts from Citigroup and JP Morgan. So what did Citigroup say about delinquencies? They said, it's worth noting that across our U.S. credit card portfolios, delinquency and NLC rates continue to perform in line with expectations. Bullish. You're not seeing massive trends in delinquencies. And then you have JP Morgan that said today, the consumer is strong, resilient, spending is strong, and delinquency rates are actually coming in, wait for it, below expectations. So across the board, I mean, like we've been seeing all these charts, and I've been sharing these charts of auto loans, credit card loans, and personal loans going delinquent. You got JP Morgan and Citigroup saying it's not that bad. It's like, I mean, and they can't lie about this stuff, right? Like they have to disclose the numbers. They're saying the consumer is okay. And so you got a tale of 2 cities in regards to what exactly is going on with the consumer. And I guess and then United comes out and says, we're increasing our operating margins or operating income to the highest we've ever set in Q4. So, when you get that type of a response from some of these travel companies, and we'll see what the other consumer companies say over the next coming months or weeks in earnings, maybe the consumer isn't that bad. And as a result, that could be potentially bullish as well. Yeah, Walmart had bullish consumer commentary as well. Dude, Walmart, Home Depot, Lowe's, all these guys. Remember, 3 months ago, they didn't say that tariffs were that big of an issue. In fact, they were saying that, the tariffs aren't really stopping a lot of demand. There was a chart that I think I didn't show yesterday that showed that the biggest consumer of tariffs is not actually the consumer, it's businesses. Businesses are eating up most of the issues that we're having with tariffs. I mean, they're essentially taking the cost with tariffs, and they're not putting it on the consumer. And as a result, if the consumer is not really hurting for tariffs and they're not being delinquent, I mean, that should be super bullish for SoFi, because SoFi's credit underwriting is so much better than a lot of these other fintech companies. If people aren't going delinquent for JP Morgan and Citi, they're probably not going delinquent for SoFi. And I feel like that should be bullish. Yes, I bought Amcor. I have this in the portfolio. Average is 30.50. 31.40. Okay, so the new stock that we talked about today with Stock Talk, I would recommend people listen to the Twitter Spaces. I'm probably going to buy it. I mean, and the reason for it is ENS. I have not taken a position yet. 123. I should have bought it at 119 when Basen said the stupid China comment. You should listen to the Twitter Spaces. Stock Talk is someone I really trust. He's a good friend of mine, and he's someone I trust as a stock picker. He's up 500% this year, and he's not up on the super, super hype names. He really is a phenomenal stock picker. And, that's why I wanted to even start the show with him. There's the Twitter link right there. ENS trades at a 10 PE, 1 times price to sales, no debt, profitable, and it's a $4.5 billion company. It is a leader in energy storage and battery production. Again, go listen to the 30 minutes. It's a really solid thesis that he put out right there. And the reason I'm compelled to it, same thing like Amcor, is very simple. I want names that are cheap in this market, but that are in the trends that matter. Semiconductors is a trend that matters. Amcor is freaking cheap in that trend. Now, you've got to understand what Amcor does, where they take place in sort of the American onshoring and reindustrialization of manufacturing. But if you understand that thesis, and then you look at the numbers, and then you understand the broader tailwind of CapEx and semiconductors in the United States specifically, it becomes a compelling story. Almost same exact thing with ENS. ENS's batteries, 3 subsectors to focus on. Data centers, which we all know the trend about that. Robotics, they've had a 16-year history working with robotics. And then national security, they've had a very long history working with the U.S. military. That, along with the valuation, along with the fact that the stock is barely up year to date, same thing with Amcor, and that it's positioned in this trend of energy. So instead of buying EOSE, which look, I love this stock and a lot of people that have made money on it, congratulations, but it's trading at 200 times sales. I'm not buying that. Anyone else, other people can go and take the leap on that, but I'm not doing it. And I hope there is no one left holding the bag, but if there is, I will have no one to blame but myself if I buy stock trading at 200 times price to sales. It's just that simple. And again, it doesn't have to collapse, but if it does, I get to blame myself. The good thing about a company like Amcor or ENS is that if the market goes down, these guys will go down, but not as much as the high beta names. If the market goes up, these guys will go up. Maybe they don't go 5x like a EOSE or an Oklo, but you're also not taking that much risk. So I don't know. I really am liking these SMID caps that are positioned in a secular trend and that are cheap. And it's really nice to own something that's freaking cheap, dude. Like, I love Robinhood, but it's not cheap. And so you go through these massive swings every day because at the end of the day, the stock's not cheap. It's going to go up, it's going to go down. When something's relatively cheap and it doesn't have a multiple, you want to get in before it expands the multiple. You want to know if there's a catalyst to expand that multiple, but you also don't have to worry that much about the volatility of the stock because, again, it doesn't have that much of a multiple. What is the reason for it lagging then if it's a leader and cheap? Because they don't have the earnings growth yet, both of them. And so the same thing with EOSC or Okla or whatever. Now, they don't have any earnings. But the reason these stocks were lagging in the beginning of the year and why they're mooning right now is because the narrative is on their side. Amcor is not going to get some, 50,000 Twitter posts talked about it, creating like this hype narrative, but they're going to put up results. At least I think that is my, prerogative in making the investment. So if you believe the results and the catalysts are coming, then if you're getting a good deal on the valuation, then you sit back and buy. Which is different from buying something that's hyped up, right? Because it might go 10% the next day and you get all this dopamine. But you also are buying something that is obviously already made a massive move. And I think that's the difference in philosophy there. AMKR is just equity. It's just equity for me. I'm not buying any calls on any of this stuff. Just stock. So that's what we got right there. Just went to Starbucks to get a muffin. I saw a dude with a suit watching a midstream. Okay, you're definitely trolling. That would be hilarious, though, if that was the case. I did not buy it yet. I'm probably going to buy it. I should have bought it at 119. I thought we might get a little bit more of a dip, but I probably will. But I mean, dude, again, we'll listen to those 30 minutes. Those 30 minutes, I'm going to make a one-pager on it. Same thing I did with Amcor, so I'll put that out tomorrow so people can see it. But I mean, I like names that are cheap and are in the right trend, and Stock Talk has a really good method for finding these. Also, he's spent the past 10 years trading battery stocks, so he understands batteries really well, and his ability to communicate why they're a leader in battery production, I think, is also really important. Dude, the other day, I walked out of my apartment. This happened the other day. I literally walk out, and I'm starting to walk. And some guy is jogging. And in the middle of me walking, he turns his head and he stops. This was on Friday. When market crashed, and I'm like, goodness gracious, bro. I'm like, holy crap. And he's like, bro, the market sucked today. And I was like, this can't be happening today. I was like, yo, what's up? What's up, man? And that was the second time this happened. I told you guys about it 2 weeks ago. The same thing happened. And someone stopped me and he told me how much he loves Tanner and Steve and the whole crew. That was wild, bro. That was like, I stepped 2 minutes out of my apartment and someone who's jogging, they recognized me. So, and then it happened. I told you guys the story about the Starbucks the other week ago. So it is funny that you mentioned Starbucks and some guy in a suit watching. You're probably trolling, but there actually was a guy in Starbucks that I just casually went into a Starbucks and he was like, Amit. He's like, should I buy Grab? I was like, yep. I think it's cheap. I think it's cheap. That was wild, bro. It was freaking wild. How do we find your deep dive? So 2 deep dives will be launching on Friday. Let me put the link right here in the chat. Friday afternoon, the Substack will go live. This is the link. There's no paywall. You don't have to pay for anything. It'll be 2 a month, but we're going to start off with 2 of them. And that'll be out on Friday. So excited to officially launch this Substack. The Amcor one-pager, let me pull that up right here. We need to get a place to organize all this stuff so that you guys can easily access it without me having to link it. Okay, this is the Amcor one-pager. Amit, have you met anyone that can do your laugh? Yes, my uncle. Dude, my uncle. And that's probably where I get my laugh from, my uncle. He laughs like a hyena and he gasps like me. So I think that's where I get it from. What about Steve and Oreos? Well, we spammed Oreos in Steve's chat. Dude, Steve doesn't really understand how to interact with a chat yet. So we all went to Steve's stream yesterday and we spammed Oreo because he likes chocolate chips over Oreos. I was like, let's spam Oreo. And this dude for 20 minutes is on like a comment from 20 minutes ago. And we're like, bro, like you gotta move the chat up a little faster. And then he finally gets to all the Oreo spam. But it was hilarious, bro, because I watched his stream when I was ending Technical Tuesday yesterday, and we tuned into his stream when this man was asked a question about cookies. And he freaking looked to the sky. Look at this. Look at this. Just look at this clip. He looks to the sky because of how passionate he was to answer this question. It was the most hilarious thing ever, dude. It was incredible.
State. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. That's a hard one.
He's looking to the sky, bro.
That's a really hard one because, I mean, rainbow cookies are amazing. Cannolis are amazing. Cannolis are a little better when you have coffee with it. I mean, why do I have to choose? Why can't I just have both? Why can't I just have both? I don't want to choose. I'm not choosing.
And that's his conclusion. He's like, you know what? I'm not even going to give you an answer. I'm not even going to give you an answer. I'm just picking both. I love Steve, dude. I love Steve. He's going to be interviewing Tanner tonight. So for those that want to check out his channel, I'll leave his link right here. I will be watching tonight as he interviews Tanner. That was great, bro. That was great. That was hilarious. ABAT is falling. This is another battery company, if I'm not wrong. Oh, shit. Whoa. That's a move down. ABAT down 35%. Why did this thing pump the other day? Does anyone remember? Form 8K. Oh, shit. They lost the contract. Oh, no. They lost a DOE grant in their 8K. Just came out 5 minutes ago. Does anyone remember why it pumped the other? There was some head. I'm totally forgetting why it pumped. But they lost a Department of Energy grant as per their 8K. And termination of a material definitive agreement. There you go. Termination of a material definitive agreement from the DOE. American Battery Technology. Did this just pump with the rare earth companies? Was that it? Just Good, dude, this one's getting destroyed. It was already down 21% during the day, so someone probably knew. And now it's down another 40%. Hold on. This stock year to date, dude, this stock was $1 on July 5th. It was $2 on September 15th. It went up to $8 yesterday. So it was like basically a 4x in less than a month. And now it is down to $5. You're still up a double from September 15th. But think about all the people that bought this shit at $7 or $8, unless it recovers. I mean, we got to see if this one is a nothing burger, if it recovers, but getting hit down 30. See, this is what I'm scared of, bro. This is what I'm scared of. This stock was a $200 million company a month ago. Then it became a $1 billion company 2 days ago. Now it's back down to like a $600 million company, $650 million company. And I don't have the stomach for this shit. I don't. EOSE? Oh no. Is that one dumping? Okay, that's 3%. That's way more tame than American Battery Technology. I know this one's gonna hurt people though, because this one actually it's dumping more, 12%. See, let me pull up Webull. Robinhood's got to fix the after hour percentage changes, otherwise we can't accurately tell. Webull right here down 12%. This one I know FinTwit is super heavy in. There's like 50,000 posts a day about this thing. Okay, why are they down? Let's see. EOSE. I don't see the news. I don't see anything. Maybe it's algos. Maybe it's just algos. But down. ABAT has a real reason. EOSC is down. I mean, you don't have the stomach for it, but you're comfortable enough holding a huge Palantir stake. Yeah, but dude, again, we're buying Palantir below $20. So it's just different, right? When you have such a margin of safety, you're not that worried about it. Like, I understand it's volatile, but it's also like we've been holding on to it for a long time. And, at the end of the day, I just have more conviction in a name like Palantir. But these random names, just chasing them for the sake of, it's in energy, it's in semiconductors, it's in nuclear, it's in rare earths. Like, you just see a lot of that going on. And the question is, like, do you have the stomach to actually deal when some shit like this happens after hours? Because the worst thing you can do right now is this is a nothing burger and then you sell. And then you lose a ton of money only to have to buy it back higher. And you're probably going to buy it back higher because you're going to be mad that you sold. And you're going to want to revenge trade it. And then you buy the top and then it tanks again. Like, I've been through it. Everyone's been through it. It's not a fun way to live. Forget investing, bro. It messes with your mind. Like, you can't go about your day when you're losing money for no reason. Hood's down 10% tomorrow. I'll live with that. But some random name I YOLO'd into down 10%, that's hard-earned money that you just lost 10% on for no other reason other than you were having FOMO. That's the hard part on this. Jesse says, I took my ABAT profits today and I bought Amcor. Okay, well, that's a good trade. That's not a bad trade. ABAT, let's see if that one's still going down. ABAT still down 20%. You're getting a bid at 530. That's why we have diapers. But still down 22%. Why do you use Webull if you love Hood so much? I use Legend, but after hours, they haven't fixed showing the actual price decline. They do it intraday. And I told them about this. Spent 20 minutes with the head product design for Legend. And I was like, bro, like, during earnings, I need to see after hours what is happening to the stock. You can't just mix it in. Like, it says EOSC is up 1.8% today. That's not true. It's down 11% after hour. I need to see that. So hopefully they fix that before earnings. But yeah, that one's still getting hit. What do you think of Ondas? I don't know much about them. I know this one has had a crazy run in the drone space. Ondas down 8% today. I mean, a lot of those high flyers, dude, Ondas, Oklo, all those names, they took a little bit of a beating today. And the question is here, this name that is up freaking 260% year to date, a 10% down day. Is that 10% down day indicative of a structural decline in the high beta names, or is that just the market's exhausted, it took a breather? If I had to guess, I would say the market's exhausted, it took a breather. I don't think it's a structural decline, but what if it is, right? And that's where you have to ask yourself, do you want to hold on, or how much conviction ultimately do you have? I think that's important to kind of fully understand. Can that happen to Amcor? Look, it could happen to Amcor, but again, Amcor trades at one-time sales. EOSC trades at 200. That's the difference. When you buy a name that's not that expensive, of course it can go down, but your like margin of safety is a lot more improved than a name that has 200 times the level of its sales, no earnings. You can't even use priced earnings. And obviously if things get, I mean, why do we think Bitcoin goes down every time something geopolitically breaks out, but gold goes up? Because people sell off the most risky thing in their portfolio, which tends to be crypto. I mean, every single time we get a bad piece of news across the world, Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, Solana, they all tank. Now, those have been buying opportunities over the past 10 years. But the point is, like, people go away from the risk on assets when things get tough. And if something isn't that expensive because there's not that much multiple baked into it, you probably don't see as big of a decline. You'll see a decline, but maybe not as big. Can it happen to Grab? Again, I think Grab is cheap. They have $7 billion in cash. Like, of course it could happen to Grab if they have a bad earnings or something, but I also don't think the multiple on this is absurd. Like, I really don't. $7 billion in cash, $16 billion enterprise value, growing 30%, profitable. Like, it's just, like, these are different than some of the companies like an Oklo that are in Oklo's in a way better narrative than Grab because it's nuclear energy, but it's also much more expensive. And that's kind of the difference. Are we early on Amcor and ENS? Yes, I believe so. Based on the valuation multiples they're getting, yes, I think so. Obviously, the companies have to execute, but yeah, objectively, based on these valuation multiples, I think they're early and they don't have a multiple yet. If they do get a multiple, that will hopefully be better. Grab has cash. It is profitable. These are not the same as your favorite runners. Yeah. Dude, cash is really nice to have on the balance sheet. Very little debt is really nice to have. Not having to dilute shareholders is very nice to do. And actually growing is also nice. A lot of these names. How did Quantum do today? Did they make a move? Quantum was up today. Dude, all right. There's a lot more people on Twitter that are trying to position themselves for this Quantum short. One of my good friends who's I've known for a while, he texted me the other day. And he was like, bro, I am loading up on Quantum puts. Like, loading up on Quantum puts. And I'm like, I get it, but it's just at the end of the day, if the retail shareholder base continues to subsidize it, and there is actual progress on quantum computing, which we cannot rule out of the picture, that like quantum computers legitimately do change the world. I mean, these stocks are not going to be the best short. So it's not Skrelly. It was not Skrelly. Skrelly is still short, but Skrelly is making a meme out of how short he is every day. Like, everyone keeps asking him, and he's like, "Yes, I'm short, and I don't care what you think." But the point is, I don't know if it's the best short, just given it doesn't have to collapse. Like, take a look at this, dude. The CEO of Rigetti was in Arizona the other day. He indicated that they are still in R&D mode from someone who was at the conference and still at least a decade away from scaling up. This stock trades at 18,000 times price to sales. And the CEO is saying we are still a decade away from scaling up. Either it's the most obvious short of all time, or this industry is so freaking important that it doesn't matter. IONQ, one of the only servers they have connected to AWS, Skrelly posted, is going offline for a month. One of the only servers they are running on AWS. This is a $40 billion company is going offline for a month. I mean, like, what is happening here, right? Like, what's going on? And so, but do I have the balls to short it? No, I don't, because definitely not short. As a hedge for puts, I don't think it's crazy. But does that mean these stocks don't have to go up? No, it could. It could mean that they continue to go up. And again, you got a lot of retail investors that are in these names. Got a lot of retail investors that are in Rigetti, 55 right here. IONQ, 73. And D-Wave, 42. And a lot of them, again, they got in at like $3-4. And when you get in that early, your margin of safety, so this thing could fall 50% and you'd still be up 10x. So you might not be that interested in getting out of it, especially if it keeps going higher. SMCI or Amcor for next year, got to choose one. I mean, Amcor is cheaper, but SMCI, see, Amcor reminds me of SMCI. SMCI, Chris, dude, when Chris talked about SMCI, when this thing was freaking $5 back in 2023, and he was looking at what technology will be important for the server racks on GPUs, And he was, I mean, dude, it went from 4 to 120. Now, even at 50, 4 to 50 would have been a great trade. But I didn't look into it. And I think, Chris made some money on it. He didn't hold on for the whole time. But it was a name that had zero multiple at the time, like Amcor types of multiples, 1 times price of sales. And it was going to get a massive ramp up in demand. So Amcor to me is more attractive from that perspective because I think they can pull that type of move. However, SMCI has a bigger audience. SMCI, I mean, this stock gets tweeted about thousands of times every day. So like I'm in both, but the question you have to ask yourself is which one do you, if you had to pick, do you want to be in something that has a narrative which should theoretically move higher with all the demand for GPUs, but is not as cheap as a Amcor, or do you want to be in something that's cheap? And I think that's a conversation a lot of people are having right now, which is, do you want to be in a name like Amazon, which is cheap but not moving, or in a high flyer like EOSC that goes down 10% after hours and you don't exactly know why? And I think those questions really do matter. So that's what we got. That's what we got on the day. All right, I think that's it. I think we're done. We had the Trump-China news. He said a bunch of things. Whoa, is this true? The United States Mint will begin producing a $1 American innovation coin starting in Apple with Steve Jobs on it. That would be kind of crazy, not going to lie. Steve Jobs on the $1 American innovation coin. That sounds like exactly something Trump would want to do. By the way, there was a rumor that Trump's going to be put on the quarter, like his face will be put on a quarter over the next year. That's not fully confirmed yet, but that's another thing that came out. I think this would be pretty cool, dude. We should celebrate innovators in the United States. And no one really uses the dollar coins that much anymore anyway, so it's kind of like a memento for those that have it. And so I think that would be cool. Does anyone use coins at all? Does anyone even have coins, like in your wallet or something? Like, if I get coins at a register, I just leave it in the tip bucket. I never actually take the coins with me. I think that's why they're going to stop making the penny as well. Thought we were going digital. Well, I guess we're commemorating on the dollar coin. I use Coinbase. Oh, Dougie knows about coins. Dougie knows about coins. For those that don't know, Doug has a laundromat. And yeah, he knows a little something about coins. Dude, Doug, you must literally feel like Walter White when you collect your freaking coins at the end of the week. It must be in a hilarious moment. No, I count my money with a scale. Okay, let's ask this question to end it out. Because I was actually talking about this with Dougie today. If you could invest in a cash flowing business, we're going to give it $5,000 per month. That's not profit. That's just cash flow. You still have expenses. That's just cash flow. So 60 grand a year. Laundromat, ATM machine, vending machine, think whatever different type of business. Would you put up, let's call it $300,000-$400,000, take it out of the stock market to set up that eventual cash flowing business, or would you rather leave it in the market? Let's do a poll on this. Yeah, corner store. Even if you could invest in like a Dunkin' Donuts or something, would you take, just call it $500,000, $500,000 out of the stock market, or proportional to whatever you have in the market? If you had the opportunity to, you need a bit more than $500,000 for some of these types of businesses, but would you take that because they're just so, CapEx intensive? Would you take out money from markets to invest in cash flow businesses, like real businesses? I'm split on this because with option selling, bro, even if I don't want to be in a company, if I could put $300,000-$400,000 grand in a name that I think is a solid name and sell calls on it or sell puts on it, and like the DD is legit there, I'm probably going to get a better return if we're talking about multi six figures or even $1 million, than putting it into something where it's labor intensive. I got to check up on it. I got to go through all that shit. Like, it's a lot more work. And for most of us that are already doing so much research every day, like if you can put your research in the right area, and then yes, there's more of a risk you're taking versus a laundromat, even though the laundromat has its own types of risks. I mean, you probably get a better bang for your buck and a better use of your time. But it's also nice to diversify, bro. It's nice, and people are always going to do their laundry. It's just a little safer. 60-40. 60-40 no in the chat. 60-40 no in the chat. 62% say no, 38% say yes. Damn, you guys are saying hell no. Hood's ripping up? Why is Hood ripping up? Hood's not ripping up, bro. Actually, no, it is ripping up. There's that green can. No, now it went back way. That was a glitch. They just toyed with us. They just toyed with us. That wasn't shit. Dude, you saw that, right? In real time. Look at that. Went back to being red. This is what happens when you don't invest in laundromats. You freaking get obsessed when you get a 40% or 40 cent move after hours. And you think it's going higher. You gave me a heart attack. Bro, you guys give me a heart attack because you think something's running or dumping if it's down 5 cents. And I have to take it seriously because 17 of you do it in the chat and you can't ignore it. And then you look at the stock and it's up 0.2%. But yeah, that was a glitch. That was a glitch on the brokerages. I see most people saying no, bro. I see most people saying no. That's too much work. Small businesses are a trip. Real estate only, rental properties. Yeah, but I'm not talking about real estate though. Real estate, I understand. And I think a lot of people would still say they don't want to do real estate because it's a lot of work. But I'm talking about a legit cash flowing business on the side that your buddy's starting or, your uncle is starting or something like that. Or that you are potentially starting. Yeah, most people saying no, bro. Most people are saying no. Yeah, everyone's just saying real estate instead. Yeah, I agree, dude. I don't just invest in a cash flowing business. Yeah, I mean, you're talking about cash flow. Let's invest in a stock that has good cash flow, right? It's just obviously it's not going to literally cash flow in your hands unless you sell covered calls against it, right? That is your way of generating a yield from the cash flow. I really do think it's not, again, you have to keep in your mind that you don't care about the stock being called away because it's a cash flow. The whole point of it is for cash flow. So if you buy Rivian, if you think Rivian's a great deal at let's just do some wrath. Rivian, 1340. Okay. Let's say I think Rivian deserves to be 20 or something, right? Let's say I don't think Rivian's a bad company, yada, yada. Let's say I have 400 grand. I'm going to buy, divided by, let's just call it 1350, 29,000. Let's just do 30,000 shares. Rivian covered call. Instead of that 400 grand going into starting a laundromat, next month, November 14th, I'm going to sell a call for 1650. 1650. Out of the money, delta of 0.2. I'm getting 28 cents. Actually, I'm getting 30 cents times 300 contracts. Dude, that's a $8,400 return on that $400,000 investment in 1 month selling the 1650 covered call. And because Rivian is a stock that has tons of liquidity, you're going to have no problem getting in or out of the position. And I'm using $400,000 because I'm imagining you would have to take out a lot of money to start a laundromat or a corner store or whatever. Bro, I press 2 buttons and I make $8,000. And Rivian, if it goes to 1650, I make $3 a share on 30,000 shares. So another 100 grand. Now, what's the bear case? The bear case is Rivian tanks. But the point of buying Rivian and doing the strategy on Rivian is because you think maybe it tanks to 11, maybe it tanks to 10, but it's probably not going that far below. So you have a margin of safety to be able to do this on. And then if it gets sold away, it's okay, it gets sold away. I made 100 grand. I made 108 grand based on the premium, and then I get all my money back and I pick a new stock to do it on. Isn't that so much more relaxing than checking up on the laundromat or the corner store? It's just a totally different perspective. Obviously, one could argue it's a lot more risky, but what if there's freaking bad weather and people don't do their laundry for a week because, they don't want to go? There's so many other risks from a real business as well. So that's why I wouldn't do it, but I understand if some people still do it. Okay, we got to talk about New York City. You guys are going to lose your minds when you hear this shit. You guys are going to lose your minds when you hear this shit. Okay, so Steve told me this yesterday. I don't think anyone's going to believe me here unless you live in New York. I don't think anyone's going to believe me if you live in New York unless you live in New York. So Steve started his YouTube channel. And I'm like, Steve, you got to make an LLC because you got to freaking all the YouTube income you're getting, you should run it through an LLC. So you have expenses, yada, yada. And he was like, I'll do that in 2026. I was like, why, bro? It takes like 5 minutes. Just put up an LLC and then you're good to go. I almost dropped my phone when he said this, bro. I could not believe this, but it's true. When you form an LLC in New York City, a limited liability company, as an entrepreneur, the state has a rule that you must advertise your LLC in at least 2 newspapers approved, 2 news publications approved by New York State for 6 consecutive weeks. This must be done within 120 days of the LLC's formation. AKA, for you to start a business, you have to pay the New York Times or the New York Post or whatever is the approved publication in a newspaper, by the way. We're talking about a newspaper. I mean, maybe they allow it on the digital version of the newspaper as well. But the point is, for 2 publications and 6 weeks, you have to pay to tell the residents of New York City, not just New York City, New York, the whole state, that I, Steven Fiorillo, started an LLC for my YouTube channel. Dude, I didn't believe him yesterday. I was like, you're lying. He was like, bro, like, this is what I have to do. And he was like, that's why I don't want to do it end of year. I got stuff to worry about. I got family, Thanksgiving. I was like, I'll do this in January. I was like, this is insanity. This is crazy. And so the reason why is likely because New York wants to suck whatever money they can out of entrepreneurs to be able to do this. If you don't do this, Gemini right here is saying, failure to meet the publication requirement can result in the automatic suspension of your LLC authority to business in New York. The suspension can make it difficult or impossible to get business licenses. The law does state that the liability shield remains intact, meaning the owners are still protected from personal liability, but obviously you are not fully affirmed as a business in the state or the city if you don't advertise. Tell me that's not insanity, bro. You mean I'm starting a business, I barely have any money, and now I am forced to pay the New York Times to let them know I started. What is the ad going to say? Hey, I started a YouTube channel. Like, what? How does that help my business? How does that even begin the process of me being able to generate revenue, especially when I have to spend money that I don't have? So he was telling me there are companies in New York that do this for you for like a $1,200, $1,500 fee. Riley says it's not unusual. Bro, I don't know what state you live in. I would love to know if this happens in other places. I've never heard of this shit. I've never heard of this. LA has this too? Okay, well, I believe LA has it because it's freaking LA. But I could not believe New York does it, dude. I could not believe that. Yeah, we can't even stake our Ethereum. That's not required in New Jersey. You can do whatever the hell you can start. I never advertised my LLC when I started in 2019 in New Jersey. There was no need to tell everybody I started a company. No, it can be online as well. You can be print and online. But, dude, I've never seen that. Yeah, Texas, bro. Dude, if Texas did that, the Texas residents would revolt against that. You know, guns are legal in Texas. Guns are legal in Texas. But I couldn't believe it, dude. I couldn't believe it. NJ requires you to get into a bar fight. Nobody reads the paper anymore. Let me ask Gemini some more questions about this. Let's go into AI mode and dive deeper. Dude, I just couldn't believe when he said this shit yesterday. Does it have to be a physical newspaper or can it be online? Not in Georgia? Yeah, I would imagine not in Georgia. No, it cannot. Wow, it cannot be online. New York law requires the formation to be published in 2 physical printed newspapers designated by the county clerk. What, like, I just, dude, I don't get it. Like, what a strain on a small business to have to go through this shit just to start their business. What are examples of news publications in NYC that would be acceptable? Yeah, small caps did make all-time highs today. That was really nice to see. I mean, they've been outperforming really well over the past couple of weeks. You must first contact the county clerk's office for the specific borough you live in, and then you will get a list of publications. The New York Law Journal, the Brooklyn Eagle. Dude, this is insanity, bro. This is insanity. So, yeah, I get why Steve's not starting an LLC. It's a lot of work to go through all that shit right now. But it's pretty crazy. So, I just couldn't believe that yesterday. I really couldn't believe that. All right, that's what we got. Daily recap will be out in a couple hours, and we'll keep going from there. Again, the summary of today. You got a lot of high flyers that are taking some beatings. I don't think they're necessarily going to collapse, but I do think the market's a bit tired right now. You got Besant, who's ramping up his rhetoric with China, and Trump ramping up the rhetoric with China. We'll see what happens with this Trump meeting with Xi in South Korea. You've got this big macro stat for anyone who missed it. Last week was the largest week in stock market history for inflows if the market was down at least 1% or more. Quite incredible, in my opinion. And then finally, you got an S&P that's recovering relatively strongly. I mean, look, it's not at 673, but we did hit 670 today. And the fact that we're above 650, 655, I do think is pretty bullish. By the way, take a look at this chart right here. Look at Bitcoin, the term buy Bitcoin. 2017, Google Trends showed it was topping. 2021, it was literally at 100. Today, it's at 50. This is the term buy Bitcoin on Google Trends. I mean, is retail even interested in Bitcoin anymore? Like, now you can interpret this as bearish because you can say, hey, like retail's not trading. Or you can interpret it as bullish because retail hasn't even begun really searching about Bitcoin. And if that, 2021 100 level Google trend is about to come, then it's going to, if it takes another couple months, maybe Bitcoin has a lot higher to go. So, there's two spins to it, but I thought that was pretty interesting today when we saw this as well. That's actually, look, Victor, that's a good point. People use ChatGPT now. That's fair, but I don't think that's enough to say that, the search trends on Google should be that depressed if we're in a massive bull market where retail is participating. Robinhood's number 145 in the US App Store. Coinbase isn't even in the top 200. So, and Coinbase is a strictly crypto play. So it should be in the top 200 if retail is buying Bitcoin. Robinhood's probably there because a lot of these stocks are going up as well. So people are interested in investing. But you're not seeing a ton of those names get as much momentum. All right, cool. That's it for me. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. I will see you guys on the daily recap later. Thank you, everybody, for showing love on the daily recap. A lot of people seem to be liking that show, and I really enjoyed doing it. Hopefully 15, 20 minutes for everyone to catch up on what's going on in the markets. And yeah, that'll be out later. Salesforce is getting a move after hours right here. I don't know if there's a headline, but take a look at Salesforce. 4% move. Is there a headline? Let's see. Salesforce. The OpenAI partnership was yesterday. They are having a Dreamforce conference today. Benioff might have said something. No, I don't see the headline, but it's up. It's up 4%. I don't think anyone has a headline. I don't see it. Is there anything there? Yes, we'll talk about Amazon on the daily recap. We'll talk about Amazon. Our boy Austin today posted a great thread. Again, if you're not following Austin, I would heavily encourage. He's 18 followers away from 1,000. He's a great friend of the channel. He is a moderator for the channel. I mean, he's been in the chat for like 3 years, helping out with moderating the chat. He was calling Google. I mean, he's become a good friend of mine. He was at the Miami meetup, and he posts amazing due diligence. But we need to follow him so he gets more incentivized to keep posting his due diligence. So definitely make sure to check him out. I think he will be posting a lot more about Amazon over the coming weeks. And so if you're interested in Amazon, I think you should follow him. Yeah, I don't see the headline, guys, on CRM. I don't see it. Maybe it's algos, but no one on Twitter has it. No one has it. Trump is not live anymore. And his birthday is October 27th. Oh, his birthday is in a week. Okay. Tanner's birthday, I think. Is it Tanner's birthday? tomorrow? No, 17th? Tanner's in October too. Or is he after me? No, I think he's after me. I think he's after. But we do have a bunch of October. All right, so we got Austin. This bell that I've been ringing for the past 5 mornings is from our boy Austin. He got this for me before YouTube sent the plaque. So deeply, deeply appreciate you, Austin. And we are now on the Amazon journey together. Let's see what we can do with Mr. Amazon. Yeah, I don't see the headline for CRM. Oh, hold on. CRM just announced a $60 billion, what is this, revenue run rate, and it will achieve Rule of 50 growth by 2030. Rule of 50 growth by 2030. Here's the picture. 50 by fiscal year 30. Dude, hold on. They're bragging about a rule of 50? Wait, is that what they're bragging? That's what's pushing the stock? I don't want to be the guy to say it. But Palantir has a rule of 80 and it's 2025. They're bragging about a rule of 50 in 5 years. Is that really what's moving this thing? The other picture I see is 60 billion in revenue. They're doing 42 billion right now. That's not, anything above 9 to 10% growth. Look, I think Salesforce is cheap. I'm not saying Salesforce is not undervalued, but the fact that this is spiking the stock just goes to show how people are thinking about it. All right. That was up 3.5%. Yes, it was the rule of 40 before Palantir. I mean, as a software company, again, it's fair to compare them. And Palantir's, rule of 40 is top line growth and then operating margins. Palantir is really crushing a lot of software companies in that space. But, it's hard for Salesforce to get good operating margins because they employ so many salespeople. And that's expensive. Palantir doesn't have that many salespeople. So I guess a rule of 50 by fiscal year 2030 is what's doing it for them. All right, that's it. I'm out. Thank you, everybody. And again, thank you for the support on the Daily Recap. I really enjoy making it every single day. We'll talk about Amazon on that show as well. And yeah, it'll be out in a couple hours. And we'll be back tomorrow, Thursday. The week's going by fast for the market open. All right, thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. I'll see you guys tomorrow morning. Bye, everybody. Have a good one.